Well, Paul said to his friends, be glad, rejoice, revel, celebrate. Is that how you are feeling today? Can you be thankful on demand like that? What does rejoicing look like for you? I must confess, well, I must, but I'm going to confess, I'm not a great rejoicer. I like to stay, restrained or something, in control of my emotions. So I try not to look excessively happy. Honestly, I might not be as good at hiding my emotions as I like to think I am, but even so, really, how ridiculous is that? Why on earth should I avoid looking excessively happy? Am I afraid of looking silly or foolish? Well, partly. I think there is something in us, well, at least in me, that feels vulnerable when we show emotion, even a joyful emotion, because it opens us up to the possibility of being judged for things that make us happy. Like, that's weird. Why does that make you happy? Or maybe wondering whether we deserve to be glad when so many people are not. And our delight might indicate to someone else that there's something that matters to us, which makes us vulnerable in case someone wants to take it away or should we lose it. And then there are the odd superstition myths that sit in the back of our minds, wondering if we're too happy, maybe we're tempting fate. We know that there are all kinds of disasters that might just be lurking around the corner waiting for us to be too happy about things. Or maybe I just don't want to be too insensitive to someone who is dealing with said disaster. For there are all kinds of disasters. Perhaps you are in the midst of one or several of them right now. And you may well be wondering whether or how to rejoice in the middle of that. Let's face it, by and large, our culture does not encourage us towards celebration, unless it is excessive and therefore often drug or alcohol induced. Maybe a slight pass if the sports team wins. But can you imagine, for instance, the evening news being dominated by a series of stories about what is pleasing and commendable? Sure, there's at the end of the program, they might leave us on a high note with something lighthearted, but for the most part, the news we get is dominated by what you might say, if it bleeds, it leads. Or what about the ads that interrupt your videos or your social media feeds? All of those ads that just show up. They do not invite us to think about what is honorable or true. They focus our attention on what we don't have, inviting us to think about what we lack, our insufficiencies, our deficits. Well, why? Because the ads are interested in polarizing opinions and trying to convince us to spend money on whatever product they have that we need, because things aren't how we want them to be, and if we believe them, there's a product we can buy to fix it and make us happy. Honorable and true don't sell any more than pleasing and commendable grab our attention. And then there's the bad behavior that seems to be on the rise around us, from online bullying to pure selfishness, from straight up lying by our political leaders to the chorus of complaints and blame that we hear in social gatherings. There is little encouragement to those who might want to look on the bright side of things. How interesting, then, that Paul's words acknowledge that he is living in a bad news world too. We might not expect that, given his world and ours have so little in common, and all the stuff I was just talking about really wasn't relevant to him in his day. But Paul still knew quite a lot about disappointment and discouragement. He understood why it might not be easy to rejoice. You see, there were troubles in Philippi, and Paul was in prison in Rome, yes, in jail, writing his letters with an impending sense of death. And there was conflict in the new church that he set up. And yet, there is optimism in his words, this sense of deep gratitude. Well, how odd is that? Paul holds the reality of what is happening together with this sense of thanksgiving. We know we don't get to ignore reality either. Last week up here, Elijah argued that nobody lives a life without worry. And I expect that I'm not the only one who has a lot of automatic negative thoughts that show up to shape how I feel. In fact, I know it's not just me. There's quite a lot of literature out there about the ants, the automatic negative thoughts. You don't think them on purpose, but they just show up all the time, just like ants to ruin your picnic. What are ants? Well, you know them. They might be those all or nothing thoughts that come into our minds, so that when something bad happens, we go down the rabbit hole and decide, well, there you go, everything's wrecked. It's all a failure. Never mind, the day or the activity is ruined. Or it might be a kind of catastrophizing where we automatically assume the worst case scenario. Perhaps your tendency in there is to jump to conclusions. Or one of my favorites is how we make up things. In the absence of actual information, we just make it up. Or perhaps the things that come into your mind are words like should have, must, always, never. I'll never find someone to love me. I'll always feel this bad. There are so many ants. You might have a tendency to take everything personally, or take responsibility for things that really have nothing to do with you, but it's all my fault. Or maybe you're very good at looking for someone else to blame in your mind. If they had just done something different, it would be better. Or you have in the back of your mind these complaints. Just go over and over, complaining behind your eyes, or even out loud about the state of the world or your life. Some of us are good at being mind readers, only it's just another way we have assumptions and we make things up. So-and-so ignored me when I waved to them at the doctor's office, so obviously they're mad at me. They're at the doctor's office. It might not be about you. Instead of giving people the benefit of the doubt, we assume the worst possible motivation for someone's treatment of us. Many of us easily focus on the negative things around us and give more emphasis to them than the positive things. If someone gives you a compliment and the next person gives you a criticism, I wonder if you spend the same amount of time thinking about those the rest of the day, or whether the critique is what kind of gnaws away at you. All of us have different thought patterns that go on and repeat in our minds. We have different ants that keep us from experiencing joy. But I wonder if you recognize the ones that show up for you. I'm wondering if you've still got a paper dove with you, turn it over. And if you can, write down a word or two to describe the kinds of thoughts that drag you down and keep you from feeling grateful. Maybe it's that you get stuck thinking your way is the only way, and people never seem to agree with you. Maybe you want to write down blame or complain, or the stories I tell myself, or the things I make up when I'm assuming or mind reading. But whatever, what is preventing you from being able to rejoice today, right now? Those of you at home or watching this later, feel free to write it down somewhere. It has more power if we can write it down, or just think about it. You don't have to write it down. But let's notice, as we're thinking about that in today's Bible passage, Paul seems to recognize that what we spend the most time thinking about shapes over time who we are, what we see, and what we can imagine, and therefore what we can do. We've heard a couple of different translations today of this letter from Paul. Here's another one from what's called the Message. Summing it all up, friends, I'd say you'll do best by filling your minds and meditating on things true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious, the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, things to praise, not to curse. Paul's final encouragement in his letter is deceptively simple. Think on what is right, on what is good, on what is best. That's about it. Simple indeed. Of course, it's not at all just easy or simple to change the way we think. Ants keep showing up out of nowhere, and we don't have a lot of practice dealing with them. We can't help how we feel, and we don't want to pretend that everything is good and wonderful. Haha, I'm happy, sure I am. Much of the world is not how we want. But that is Paul's point. There is more than just anxiety and worry available to us in the middle of the world as it is. Something I read this week said, Thanksgiving is not a cure-all, but it is something. It aligns us. It helps shift the density of our worry. It lifts our hearts. It generates good vibrations in our troubled world. It helps shape our imaginations around things that are just and true and commendable. So, what about you today? How might you respond when those thoughts pop into you to tell you how bad the world is or how bad your life is? Remember, feelings are not facts. Just because we feel a certain way doesn't make it true. One of my favorite reminders is that feeling powerless is not the same as actually being powerless. Sometimes there are things we can do. So perhaps write something else on your dove to help you remember. You can choose your response. We're all different. But I might write, what if? What if I responded to my aunt with something beautiful or complimentary or flexible? There is more than worry available to us. David Lowe said we all have a mixture of memories, some of good things, some of difficult, some of successes, others of regrets, some that we're proud of, some of what shames us. And the memories that we choose to dwell on shape not only our view of the past, but dominate our present and define our future. So what if, when we're thinking about memories, what if we tried to remember the good stuff? What if we set our sights on the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, the things to praise, not curse? Do this, says Paul, and you will find that the God of peace is with you. Do this, says Paul, and you will be able to rejoice and give thanks for all the goodness, even in the midst of your troubles. Earlier, I invited you to think about something in your life that sparked joy for you. What was it? Perhaps you have been now thinking of more things that you could be grateful for. What happened? What did you see? What brought you a moment of joy? If you can, write it down. Write it down as an antidote to your negative thoughts. Put it right beside the ants. Allow yourself to feel pleased or delighted or glad or grateful about it. Let yourself rejoice. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will be with you indeed. Hooray! Thank God! Amen.